Hey guys, this is Shinoo at InnoKinetic here to talk to you about purchasing an Elise or an Exige. I'm going to assume that you've made that decision. I'm not here to try to convince you to buy one or the other. We actually made a video comparing the two cars that you can certainly watch on our YouTube channel. Today, what I want to talk to you about are the things that you need to consider in your search for that perfect Elise or Exige. So, where do we start? Well, let's start when I actually got my first car, which was back in November of 2004. So, I've been enjoying Elises and Exiges for nearly 21 years now. And as many of you know, we have developed hundreds of parts for these cars and service for these cars. So we really know them and frankly love them very, very much. So anyhow, what are the things that you need to be looking for, okay? We're gonna talk about, some of the basics that, you buy any used sports car you should be considering. And then really get to what are those very, very specific things you need to look at in any potential cars that you are interested in purchasing, right? And then we'll talk a bit about a couple of issues, a couple of my perspectives on things that you should kind of bake into this whole search and game plan. So what we'll do is we'll start off here, we'll chat through some of these topics, and then we'll go look at some cars and look at the very specific parts of the cars that you should be inspecting, okay? So let's get started here. Whenever you buy any sports car, there's some basic things that you just need to be doing. And I'm not going to get into much detail on those things. There's a ton of YouTube videos, there's a ton of books, there's a ton of articles out there that walk you through the basics. Things like, hey, what's the status of the title? Is it a clean title? Is it a salvage title? Understand that, right? Is the title in hand, right? Are you buying a car from a private party versus a used car dealer? Okay, and I think used car dealers, there's different levels of them, right? A Lotus dealer that's selling a used car, in my opinion, is far more trustworthy than just a used car dealer that may not specialize in Lotus. Certainly, at the top of that food chain, in my opinion, is buying from a private party, okay? And that assumption is that that private party has owned this car for a very, very long time, right? So the other things that you're looking for are things like crash history. Has this car been wrecked, does this current owner have all the service records, right? That's really a key thing with sports cars. It's not as much about the mileage to me as much as it is about, has the car been serviced properly on a regular basis? So I would rather take a car with some miles on it that has been properly serviced than a museum queen, which has been sitting, frankly, languishing and probably rotting, okay? So sometimes these low mileage cars are actually not as good as you might think, okay? Another thing to be looking for is what kind of high performance driving events has this car been used in? Has it been used a lot on the track? Has it been used a lot on autocross, okay? I'd say both of those type of driving events take a toll on the car. Autocross is a shorter, type of event, and it seems like it would be, not quite as aggressive as track days, but I would argue because of the quick and cyclical nature of the turning in autocross, it's every bit as aggressive. So anyways, things for you to look at. The other thing, of course, is how many previous owners have owned this particular vehicle. The lower the number, the better, okay? And so related to that, and maybe as a good segue into the very specifics that I want to talk to you about, these Lotuses came to North America in 2004 as a 2005 model year through 2011, okay? We received roughly 7,000 of these cars, Elises and Exiges. I want to say about 1,000 of those are Exiges. Certainly over the course of these last, say, 21 years, we've lost quite a few, maybe several hundred. So just for ease of numbers, let's say we've lost 1,000 of these cars to either being completely totaled and wrecked, or frankly converted into pure track day or driving only type event cars. So anyhow, if you think back when these cars were new, okay, 21 years ago, there were a lot of 50 and 60-year-old people buying this car because it was the first of its kind of type in this country in a very, very long time, right? And so these guys are now 70 and 80 years old. So they're starting to age out, right? So that's good news for those of you who are looking for a car. If you can find, and I'm telling you, over the course of the next 3 to 5, even 10 years, there are going to be quite a few cars coming on the market that were being sold by original owners, people who know the car from day one. Those are ideal cars for you to be considering, right? So what are the things then that you should be looking for? So the first thing is, and this is probably actually a good point where we're going to switch and go look at cars, okay? Because the things that we're going to talk about are going to be chassis damage, engine-related issues, gearbox, wishbone bushes, shifters, and then electronics, okay? So let me take the camera now and get on the other side of it so we can go look at some specific parts on the car for you to consider when you're looking at purchasing a car. Okay guys, let's talk about probably the single most critical part of your inspection is looking for a car that may have chassis damage, specifically the upper and lower wishbones at the front of the car. You can see where they attach to the chassis. Those areas are super critical. You want to make sure there's no damage there because it's very, very difficult to near impossible to repair that area of the car. You can see here where the lower wishbone meets the chassis. If you can get underneath the car and take a peek, you'll see it's a fully flat bottom car. And what's nice is you're able to take a look and see if the car has had any damage or gone off-road. That's a very easy way to inspect for any mishaps that the car has experienced. The wishbone bushes are a common failure point on these cars. Typically the rear upper wishbone will start to show failure. So that's an easy one to inspect if you pull the wheel off the car. The engine is certainly an area of concern with some people, but it's Toyota. So assuming the car and the oil has been warmed up properly, these engines hold up pretty well. You know, the other issue is over revving, but the 2ZZ motors have been pretty good. Oil starvation, of course, is an issue on racetracks, so that's something to consider. I certainly would have a compression test done to make sure that it's strong. So the oil line recall is something that you want to check. The way you can tell is this little tag here is kind of the telltale that the car has gone through a service, a recall service by a Lotus dealer. Checking the radiators is also a good thing because there's very few things that fail, but the radiator is one of them. This is an all-aluminum radiator that has the aluminum end caps. The factory radiators have plastic end caps that are known to crack and fail. So the gearboxes are another area that you want to consider. Synchros tend to get ground down. People who aren't familiar with heel and toe downshifting, they can cause accelerated wear on the gearbox and the synchros. Ultimately, third and fourth gears tend to get beat up. The shifter cables are another area that are known to break, something to inspect as well. The shifter mechanisms on these cars tend to have issues. Well, I should say the cars that are 2008 and later tend to have a problem with the plastic blue pivot that's at the base that tends to break. So have a look at that. If the shifter feels particularly vague and it's one of the later cars, that could be an indication that either the cables are stretching and breaking or the shifter ball is about to let loose. The shifter cables on these cars are located right here. You can kind of see the engine. They get attached to the shift linkage right down here. This happens to be our aftermarket cables, but have a peek at that. If you see the cable separating from the crimp, that means it's failing. Generally speaking, the subframes are pretty robust. They're steel, so they can be unbolted if they're damaged and a new one put on. It is a fair amount of labor, but it certainly is something that can be replaced as opposed to the main tub, which is very difficult to replace. The clusters are another area that tends to have some issues with these cars, but they can be rebuilt, or there's also new systems from AIM that we like that will help that issue. And there's a few other electronic components, things like the central driver door lock module that tends to fail, things like the resistor pack for the blower motor that you'll find located down in the HVAC cavity. Those are some things that can also potentially fail. So I always like to suggest to customers that they save somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 20% of the value of the car for potential repairs that they're going to need to make after the fact. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that. There are really a lot of wonderful cars out in the marketplace, and as you probably heard me say before, there are a lot of people that bought these cars new that are now starting to age out. So if you're patient, you can certainly find a really good car. The other thing that I would say to you as well is let color choice be secondary or tertiary in importance. I know I get a lot of calls from people saying, oh, I'm really looking for a chrome orange one or a black one or whatever color choice. These cars look great in all colors. They truly do. I've owned a dozen different colors now over these years, and I gotta tell you, they all make me turn around as I'm walking away and look at them. They look great. The real beauty of this car obviously is in the joy of driving. So anyways, good luck with your search. There's some great cars out there. Follow some of these points, these recommendations that I've made, and you're sure to find a really great car that you can enjoy for tens of thousands of miles. If not, I mean, we have customers with 200,000-300,000 miles on their Lotus Elises and Exiges. So there's absolutely no reason why you can't enjoy this car for years to come. So take your time, find the right car. If we can help you, certainly get a hold of us. We can do PPIs for you. We obviously understand and know these cars, as well as send me an email. We're putting together a little checklist for people out there looking at used Elises and Exiges, some of the very points that I've covered in this video. So Shinoo@innokinetic.com is my email. Feel free to reach out and we'll shoot over a little checklist that we're creating for you. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.